What is up, everyone? About to hop in the car, head off to my parents' house so we can work on my 98. It's got the 5.3 swap going on. Before we get going, we've had two requests. One is for a cold start. It's not very cold in the mornings now, so it's not a super good cold start, but here's that. I know, that's not the truck you were wanting to hear a cold start of, but actually, oddly enough, this is filmed after I've done this whole video, but it's in the beginning of the video. My truck won't start for some reason. I think I have a bad relay, so the cold start will have to wait. Next, we had a request for an acceleration video. Now that we got both those out of the way, we're gonna hop in the car, head off to my parents' house, and get started. Man, it feels good to be home. Well, sort of home. I grew up here, but it's hard to beat this. Anyway, so I realize I'm kind of an idiot. This is why it's kind of nice to have two people helping you with something. Remember, I was having a problem pulling the pulley off of the other power steering pump. I don't know why I didn't think of this, but I could just use this whole assembly. I don't even have to pull this one off. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take that one back off, stick this one on. This one's ready to go. So that's kind of my bad, but oh well. There we go, that's a lot better. It's starting to come together. So before I actually go and hook a whole bunch of things up, now I can hook the water pump up. I bought the hoses so I can hook the radiator and everything up. Before I go and do that, I'm just a little paranoid. I'm gonna go ahead and see if the flywheel or flex plate, whatever which one it is, hooks up to the torque converter. I'm sure it does, but I just want to do that first, because if that doesn't match up, you got to pull the engine back out. So we'll do that first, and then we'll put everything else back on. So we got bad news again. I forgot that the flywheel, flex plate, whatever one it is, I know there's a difference. I just, off the top of my head, I don't remember. But anyway, I don't remember. I do remember, but the flywheel flex plate I have is off of a 6 liter, and 6 liter has the 6 bolts for the torque converter. With the 5.3, it only has 3, and these are just a little bit off. So unfortunately, the engine has to come back out. Not all the way out, but it has to come out enough that I can get that flywheel flex plate off and get a 5.3 one on there, because the 6 liter one, yeah, the spacing was the same as the 5.3, but apparently the pattern for where it actually bolts to the torque converter is different. So yeah, not too thrilled about that, but that's what I get for not doing my research or not doing the remembering, whatever. But that's my fault. But the water pump is on. Not going to put the hose or anything on, because it's going to have to come forward every bit of this so I can get up in there and get that plate out. I'm going to leave the AC off for now. I'm actually disconnect it and take it completely out for now. It will have AC eventually, but just until we get it running and everything, I'm going to get it out of the way. I'm going to take the factory harness back home and splice everything into my harness. There really isn't much you need from the factory one, but there's a couple things, and I'll kind of touch on it. It's going to need to be pressure washed when I'm all done. This is dirty, and the little bit of radiator fluid that was left in the hose, it was kind of nasty looking, because you know it's an iron block and it's sat for 5 years, so it's a little bit rusty. So we're going to flush the radiator and everything. Alright, so it's the next day, and after doing some research, it does turn out that the 4L60E and the 4L80E do have different flex plates. So the difference is the 4L80E has 6 bolts that bolt to the torque converter, the 4L60 has 3, and the pattern, like the diameter of the circle that the bolts are in, it's about what, 3/4 of an inch difference. So from the center out, it's .375 or 3/8 of an inch. So that's my bad, but at least you guys can learn from my mistake. Don't use the 4L80 transmission or flex plate unless you're using the 4L80 transmission, obviously. But so I got to order the 5.3 flex plate, and I believe with the 5.3 flex plate, because it's dished, you have to use a spacer, which I actually have. I picked up on the discount rack at Summit, so at least I got that. But for now, I started pulling out the harness. Like I said, there's a little you got to keep for a couple of things, but obviously it's a completely different engine, so none of the sensors or anything you need to keep. Pretty much the AC, four-wheel drive, brakes, I think coolant and oil pressure. I think that's it. But so we're gonna finish pulling this out. Down here, there's two little bolt screw things, these little guys. They are 7mm, and it pulls out from back behind here. There's just two plug-ins, and then it pulls, gosh darn it, pulls through the firewall. And over here for this connector, it is a Torx 30, a T30. There it is. So now all we have left is the wires for the transmission. So I'll get those off and we'll pull this thing out. After a little bit of finagling, we got the harness out. Probably should have done it when the engine was out, you know, when it was just an empty bay, but I didn't. But one thing we can do over here is line up the heater hoses. Heater hoses actually are too long, so I just trimmed them back, and they fit. There's one big one and one small one, and the water pump, you know, the nipples on it, one's big, one's small, so just put big to big, small to small. Well, I've just about got everything put away. I think we've done all we can do this trip. This kind of sucks. Not really a waste trip, because I needed the harness anyway, but kind of unfortunate that it's got to come out, not out, but you know, up and away. I took the shrouds out. That way we got plenty of room. It's kind of a bummer, but it's the way it goes. It's what you get for not planning ahead. I'm just assuming things are going to line up. We're going to take the radiator out so we can clean it up. So we're going to go ahead and call that a day or a trip or whatever. So hopefully next time when I come up, I have the harness done and I'll have the correct flex plate, so we can put that on, bolt it up, wire everything in, and then that's when it'll really get down to the nitty-gritty, kind of start test firing, or maybe even try and start it. But the problem is, after doing some research, the exhaust really doesn't match up. On one side I think it might kind of work, but the other side it won't. And this factory piping is so small anyway, it's like 2 inch or 2 1/4. So I have an idea. I'm doing some research, but we'll get to that later. But for now, I'm gonna go home, lick our wounds, and come back next time ready to rock. See you guys next time.